Laura Patterson. I love marketing now, despite my best efforts. Um, being so focused on sales and technology, just more and more appreciation for marketing. I start the conversation with Laura about being a triathlete. She's done many sprints. She makes a great analogy between the swim, bike, and run, the transition area in between, how she learned there and how she learns, creates great lessons in life and in business from those transitions. We move quickly over to marketing, and she actually has a patent on her excellence process, which is really, really cool. She's a 4-time author. We talk about her latest book, and it's really framing around marketing. Some of the quotes, she has these Thursday thought quotes that we talk about. Every customer interaction is an opportunity to create lasting value. Data is the silent partner in every successful business venture. And now we have data, it's so readily available. What do we do with it all? Does AI help or hurt in that area? I ask what the difference between sales and marketing is, and she brings up the analogy of fishing, how her grandfather would take her fishing. Wonderful, wonderful way of looking at the difference between the two. Her view on discipline is very interesting. She's a lot more science than art. I could say that. Thanks for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. At it. Laura Patterson. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. What has running these sprint triathlons taught you in your life and in business?
Oh, Joey, so much. Okay. So, for those people who might not know much about this particular sport, let me just be sure I make everybody help everybody understand. So, a sprint triathlon essentially is a short form of a triathlon, and a triathlon means that there are 3 events that you compete in. Typically, it is a swim followed by a bike, followed by a run. It's all a race. It's all about finishing first. So. A sprint triathlon would mean that the distances are just shorter than if you were to do, for example, an Ironman, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with, which are very long distances. So I have so many things I could talk about regarding racing and how it relates to business. But one of the things that's important to understand about every triathlon is that there is this area called the transitions area. So when you are moving from one part of the race to the other, you have to go to this area. You cannot bypass it. This is where you keep your gear. This is where you come and go from, and where you start and where you end. So I just want to tell you about my first race because I think it will be really helpful. First of all, I did not know how to swim. So when I came home and told my husband, Mark, that I wanted to compete in a triathlon, he said, well, do you know how to swim? I didn't know how to swim. He says, have you ever ridden a bike? I'd never ridden a bike. Okay. So I was no spring chicken. So the first thing, of course, I had to do was learn how to swim. That's a whole nother story. I'm not going to go down that path just yet. And then he bought me a bike and he put me on the bike. And the very first thing I did was fall over because I had those kinds of, you put your feet in the things that you kind of clip on.
The clamp.
Clip-ons. Yeah. Yes. I had no idea how to do that. So we had to not start there. We had to start with real pedals. And do you have kids, Joey?
Yes, I do.
You probably taught them how to ride a bike. And maybe when you did, you held the bike for them until they got pedaling and then you let go. That's how I learned to ride a bike. Okay. So keep this in mind as I go to my first race. Now, this is an all women's race. And
Wow.
it's all the woman who ran it guaranteed that you will not be last. She will intentionally be the last one in. Everyone will be a finisher. No one will be last. Okay. All right. So we go to the race. I have all my gear in the transition area, and I go to the swim, and I come out of the swim, and I go to the transition area, and there's a woman next to me, and I'm getting a drink, and I'm having a snack, and you hear this voice on the other side of the fence, because it's all fenced in. What are you doing in there? Having a picnic? Get on your bike. And the woman next to me says, who's that jerk? Right? I get on my bike, I head out, I pedal, I come back in, I get off my bike, and I have another drink of water, and I'm getting another little snack, and there's a different woman next to me, right? And you hear this voice on the other side of the fence saying, what are you doing in there? Having a party? Run, right? So I put my running shoes on, and I head out, and I run, and I come back. My husband meets me on the other side of the fence, who was the jerk. And he says to me, did you have a good race? And I said, yes. And he said, do you plan to do more of these? And I said, yeah, I think I'd like to do more of these, which, by the way, I then spent 12 years racing, but we'll come back to that. He says, well, let me tell you something. You don't have to get any better at swimming, running, or biking. You spent 11 minutes in transition.
Whoa.
The best athletes spend 2 minutes. If
Right.
you could get your time down significantly by half, your rankings in this race would have gone up by greater than half.
Wow.
All right. So my background is all in accountability and in measurement. Those really sunk home for me. And I thought to myself, okay, awesome. I can work on that. Finally, when I got better at transitions, eventually, you have to get better at swimming, biking, and running if you're going to win, right? Yes, you can move up in your rankings by getting more efficient, but eventually you have to be more effective in the race. Does that make sense? So this all applies to business, right? So now I am getting, it turns out, Joey, I'm actually a really good bike rider. I have a
Wow.
really good mass to ratio for biking, and I'm exceptionally good at hilly races because of my size. So I can climb fast. I don't have quite enough weight to go fast on the downhill, but I can really climb well. But flatland races, not so good, especially if they're windy, because I'm little. And so the wind resistance makes it much more challenging. But I never, ever got good at swimming. I mean, good enough to muscle my way through a race. So we had to get more strategic. Now, think about this because this applies to business. We would sit down at the beginning of every year. We would have a conversation about what was our goal for the season. Am I chasing points? Am I chasing rankings? Am I chasing trophies? What is it that I want to accomplish in my age group, in the race, or whatnot? See, same thing a business should do every year for the season, right? What is the real success going to be? And then we would put a strategy together to figure that out. So a key strategy for me was shorter swim distances. Find races where the ratio of the swim is less than the bike and run. Because no matter how short those other distances are, I'm always going to be at the tail end of the swim. So the shorter the distance in the swim, the less I will be further back, right?
Wow.
I will have less time to make up. So again, it's a bench strategy, right? Finding races that have short swim lengths, distances, and finding races with long hilly bike rides because that played to a strength. Same with business. You want to find ways to minimize where you don't have your strength and find and build strategies where you do have your strength. So it's all very similar. And I could go on and on and on, but that's probably enough to get some of your community to be thinking about their business.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. Yeah, absolutely. So I've done some triathlons too, and I ended up, I knew how to swim, but not swim properly, and I ended up loving the swim, tolerating the bike, and hating the run.
Yeah, well, when you get to the run, and you know why it's in that order, right? For your listeners, you want to be doing you're exhausted as you get into that last part of the race, right? So you don't want to be in the water when you're that exhausted, because you might actually drown. Point. But if you're in a run at the last and you're exhausted, you can just stop and walk, right?
Pull over.
Just walk to the end instead of running. So I never became and I'm still not to this day, a proficient swimmer. And I got to a place where, okay, if you don't know how to swim and you need to learn how to swim, I would go and do master classes and get coaching. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners use coaches or reach out to people and mentors or others. But sometimes even those people, you're not quite ready for them for whatever reason. I ended up joining a class of 4-year-olds. I as an adult, getting in the water with 4-year-olds because I didn't know how to swim. Wow. And, it's you have to be willing to check your ego, right? And say, I need to get the fundamentals down if I'm going to be able to do this well. So just some things that maybe for some of your listeners might be helpful.
Laura, what's the difference between marketing and sales?
Oh, I love that question. And it's a trick question. All right. So would it be okay if I use a little metaphor before I answer the question?
Whatever you like.
Okay. My grandfather loved fishing. So I learned to fish very early. Okay. And when he would let he had 5 grandchildren, he'd let us as grandchildren spend the night, one at a time over the years. And so when you were about 3 or 4 years old, you got to spend the night. You get dropped off on Saturday. And if it was in the summer, you knew you were going fishing on Sunday. And the whole family would be coming together. All of us would then come together for dinner on Sunday. And on Saturday, Papa would ask you this question: what kind of fish are we going fishing for? Now, I got kind of smart as I got into this question, and I thought I really had my Papa stumped when I would say something like this: blue ones. And Papa would be very smart back, and he'd say, great, bluegill, good choice. Go tell Grandma we're going to go fishing at the park tomorrow for bluegill, help her make the bait. Okay, so I want your listeners to be thinking about what I'm saying here, because this is going to be a very important story. Okay, So we get up on Sunday morning bright and early, and we would put the tackle all together and the bait and everything, get in the car, head to the park, get everything unloaded, and then Papa would ask you the second question. What do you think the second question was, Joey?
How are we going to catch them?
Close. Where are we going to put our pole? And he would say that question, and he would be thinking this: well, let's talk about this fish. Do they like it in the deep water or the shallow water? Do they like it in the shade or do they like it in the sun? Do they like clear water or do they like it to be grassy or reedy, right? Do we want to be where there are a lot of other people already fishing, or do we want to be away from all the competition, right? So then You'd answer those questions. We'd go get our spot. We'd do our, put all our stuff out. Grandma was great. She would always make hot chocolate or something like that. And we'd have board games and card games and all the stuff that you would do. And we would bait our hook. We'd cast our line. And what are we waiting for? We're waiting.
Bite.
We're waiting for the bobber to go down. That tells us we have a fish on the hook, right? And then you're 4 years old and you jump up and you grab your fishing pole. And of course, everybody is telling you what to do. Give it a little slack, reel it in, whatever it might be. And you're reeling this fish in and you're taking a look and you're making a decision if you get it all the way to the shore. Is it a keeper? And if it's a keeper, it goes in the bucket. All right. So why am I telling this story? Because everything up to the moment that bobber goes down is marketing. And everything that happens once the bobber goes down is sales. Okay? So if good marketing is all about the upstream, kind of sticking with the metaphor, and includes the downstream. So the upstream is all those decisions. What kind of customers are we going for? Where are they? What kind of bait do they need? What are their challenges? What's success for them? What do they value? What is it that they need from you or a problem that you can solve or opportunity you can help them achieve? Where are they? All those kinds of questions, right? That's all in the upstream. That's all marketing. And then how we're going to put the bait together and where are we going to fish, right? And what is it we're going to be doing? That's still marketing, right? It's only once we have that the customer engaged far enough into the buying journey that the sales organization is typically stepping in. And in some organizations, sales never steps in because it's all done online and they just make a purchase and voila, they're done, right?
I'm just glad you didn't fall into the water since you didn't know how to swim, Laura.
Me too.
And it's interesting, yeah, because when it's transactional and it's done on the web, there's no really need for sales, is there? That's very
So it's
interesting.
all marketing. So in the classic sense of marketing, where marketing is really the engine of growth, where marketing is the part of finding, keeping, and growing the value of your customers, sales is actually a sub-component of marketing, not the other way around, right?
I work with a lot of small businesses. I'm a tech owner, and a lot of these tech-led companies I work with, not only do they don't understand, sometimes they don't respect sales, and then marketing is even more of a stretch. But I could see how that analogy could really bring it together when working with them.
Yes. I think it helps for people to really grasp what they're trying to do. The purpose of a business is to create a customer. So I'm not going to suggest that our customers are fish that we're taking home to eat for dinner. That is certainly not the intention here.
That's where the analogy ends.
That's
Yes.
right. But the question about, is it a keeper? That is an important question, right? Is it a keeper? Is the same question you would be asking. Is this a customer we want to keep? We found them. They're on the hook. Do we want to keep them? Do we want to invest in them? Because every customer is an investment that you're making. And you're going to be needing to create customer value for that customer, for the life of that customer.
Why do you love marketing so much, Laura?
Well, I've been in marketing a really long time. I grew up in the Midwest, and like many young people in my era, we became, pretty good at getting money on the side. We'd knock on neighbors' doors and see if we could shovel snow or rake leaves, or do whatever we could to, earn some money. And that is really a form of marketing. You have to have a good value proposition to come up. And why should you pick me over the next kid that's going to knock on your door, right? And so my life has actually been all about, how do you create a value proposition and position yourself starting at the very beginning? I was pretty small, so somebody might say, are you really able to shovel that snow? And somebody else might be able to say, I can shovel your snow faster. So my thing would be, when I'm done, it'll be pristine. right? You won't have any snow on your shovel. It'll be quality. It was a quality story because I was small. I wasn't going to do it fast, and I wasn't going to be able to do as big a loads of
Hmm.
snow, for example, that a bigger kid could maybe do. So you have to think about that as a business owner. What's your
Hmm.
value proposition? How are you positioning yourself against the competition? What is the promise that you're making to your customer, right? What promise are you making?
Can a business grow without marketing?
Well, I would say no. Maybe I'm being somewhat self-serving, but I would say no, because the purpose of marketing, its sole function in in terms of the classic definition, is find, keep, and grow the value of customers. Well,
Hmm.
how would you do that without marketing? Find, keep, and grow the value of customers. I mean, if you think about way back when people came in from the farms to the farmers market, right? They're in the market. And therefore, their job is to have a reason for the person who's going through the market to buy their goods over
Hmm.
the competition. So we've been doing marketing ever since we've been, bartering and selling, right? Even bartering, like how's the value of what I'm offering to the value of what I need to exchange with you? How do we make
Hmm.
sure we have equal value? Or what is equal value?
Laura, you wrote a book, Fast Track Your Business, a customer-centric approach to accelerate
Yes,
market
this
growth. Happens to be
book.
right there. Yeah. What do you want the readers to come away with?
What does it mean to be customer centric? That is to put your customers at the center of the decisions you're going to make,
Hmm.
right? And how to do that, what it takes to do that well, which is insights that are derived from data. That's back to asking those kinds of questions like my grandfather asking, learning the answers to them, uh, putting processes in place that will enable you to deliver on your value proposition, on your promise, to do it better than the competition, and then to measure how well you're doing it and select the right strategies, like we talked about in the triathlon, that will allow you to succeed.
Hmm. What's your process of writing, Laura? Did it take you a while? Why write it?
This is my fourth book, and this book was
Wow.
never intended to be. I just want to let your folks know this book is the result of a customer who prodded me to write this book. I had a customer that I have just tremendous respect for. And as he would go to different companies as a chief growth officer, he would bring me in to help his team understand what is in this book, the circle of traction, and what it is, how to use it, what it means. And it would be a very he had always had very cross functional teams: marketing, sales, product, service, customer support all together. And I think the third time I delivered that program for him, he said, "When are you going to put that circle of attraction in a book?" And
Hmm.
my response was, "Never." He said, "Well, I hope you rethink that." And then other things happened along the way, and that encouraged me. That also there were little signs, indicators. And so eventually I sat down and wrote the book. But I think if you have something to say, it will come out,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I know a lot of people are working on books. I wish them all the best. It is a huge undertaking. And
Yeah.
just getting the words down on paper is just the first step. So many more steps after that. But I have a lot of admiration for people who have produced, I mean, 4 books for me, huge. Those people who
Yeah.
have like dozens of books, I just have huge admiration because I couldn't do that.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
Yes.
Laura, you actually have a patent,
Yes.
accelerants framework. Tell me, how did that happen? It's incredible.
Yes, and thank you for asking about excellence. And I think s- something that's more and more important today. So we do a lot of work around helping companies create plans, strategic plans, marketing plans, operational plans, sales plans, all kinds of different plans. And when we first started helping companies make plans, one of the things I believe very strongly in, and is the essence of this of our company, a pillar of our company, is that you need to be able to have direct line of sight between a business outcome and result and activities, right?
Hmm.
So when you put your plan together, you should be able to see that chain between the top and the bottom very clearly. And so we didn't have a way to do that in a graphical way, a visual way. We tried, a lot of people put their plans in PowerPoint, which is a presentation software, not a planning software. Or they would put it back in the old days in Word. Great for a document, but terrible for really good planning where you can see that. Some people think that if they put their budget in Excel, they have a plan. That's really great for a budgeting process, but not a plan. So we kept trying to create it. And ultimately, it came down to that in order to do what we wanted to do, we would need to actually have software that didn't exist. And so we created our own. It's amazing to me how many random acts companies engage in, right? Random acts of selling, random acts of marketing, just random acts. In fact, I think I read recently that the average business leader spends somewhere between 30 to 50% of their day in random acts, right? And that's expensive. And it's not only is it cost time and money and energy, it steals strategic capacity from your organization. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year. And so one of the ways to know whether or not you're engaging in random acts is if you don't have direct line of sight, anything that's not on that line, that's sitting out off that line, is an orphan. And anything that is an orphan that isn't tied directly to an outcome is a random act. So our software helps make sure that you don't end up creating orphans, right? And the beauty of our software is that you have to start with the outcome, the end in mind, right? I think it was Stephen Covey who often talked about begin with the end in mind. You have to start with the end in mind. You can't try to reverse engineer your random acts and stuff them into an outcome. You have to start at the top and move down. And so that's what excellence helps you do. It helps you also look at your activities by outcome. So they're calendarized by outcome, which can be very helpful. And it also enables you to budget by outcome, which is very valuable because if you want to know whether you're getting value for the investment that you're making, you can actually see, well, what did I truly spend to produce that result? It's not just parsed out into different sub accounts. And it begins to help you think about how you're going to measure your results and create the framework for a dashboard. So all kinds of things are as a result of this patent and software.
Define random acts.
Random acts are things that you do that don't necessarily help you move the ball down the field and get the result that you want.
I
But
see.
right. So imagine someone walks in and says, I'll give you an example. This is an example that came up with a customer not very long ago. They got someone contacted them about sponsorship, right? Sponsoring a conference. And they were going to go forward and do that. And I then said to the business leader, sponsorships are great. How are you going to measure the value of this sponsorship? And which of your outcomes is this sponsorship going to help you achieve? He didn't have the answer to that. He didn't know how they were going to measure the sponsorship. There was just someone in the community that he knew, that he appreciated, that he valued. And that's okay. You may want to do that. But think about how much work a sponsorship takes, right, for your team. And if you're a small, medium-sized business, it can consume a lot of resources, right? And not to mention the money. I'm not talking just about the money. Just think about your team. I said, because your team is a small team. And if they're going to go get sucked into the vortex of this sponsorship, then the other things that are on the plate to actually help you achieve a business result will be put on the back burner. What business result will you get from this sponsorship? Which of the three, he had three primary outcomes, customer-centric outcomes for his business. Which of the three outcomes will this sponsorship help you achieve? Because this sponsorship is highly local. You don't have any outcomes around your local community. Your business isn't local. So do we need a new outcome on your plan, or is this a random act? Does that make sense?
It does. So does this fall into what you call the fluff trap?
No, it might not be fluff. It could be actually valuable, but your job is to create value for customers and your business when you're a leader. That's our job. And so the question then becomes, it's not that it was maybe a bad idea, it just didn't make sense within the context of the outcomes he was trying to achieve and the resources he had available. And even, and the larger you get, sometimes the more random acts end up getting performed because people want to come to work. I believe people want to come to work, go to work, whatever the right phrase is, with the idea that they're going to make a difference, that they're going to make a contribution. No one wants to waste their time. Time is way too precious, most precious asset we all have. And if they don't know what to do, they're going to do something. And the do something may or may not move the ball down the field. So they may be doing a lot of random acts, right? Because when they're going to do something. So the more clarity that we can have in a plan, and the more we can be clear about what things are producing an outcome, the better decisions your team can make about where does that fit. So when I, for example, am working with a customer, and here's another good example, Joey. Let me know if I'm rambling too much here. But here's a good example. A salesperson comes to the marketing person and says, I need XYZ content, or I need XYZ video, or I need XYZ, right? And the marketing person should be saying, I would love to give you XYZ. Tell me, what outcome is it expected to support? And how will we know that it's making a difference in the company? And what is the difference you want it to make? And what is it that we don't have right now as an asset that you could use? Why do you need this additional asset? What's missing in our library, right? You can have a different kind of conversation with your partner in the customer buying journey if you understand the answers to those questions. There may really be a hole in the asset set. Therefore, you might really need to have that to support an outcome, to support the customer buying journey. But it might just be that the salesperson has a different challenge and they think that this is going to solve that challenge when it might not actually be the solution to that challenge.
How do we lower the walls, Laura, of sales versus marketing?
Really good question. And I have a thought about that.
Great.
Marketing and sales should align around the customer buying journey. Rather than having marketing aligned to sales or sales aligned to marketing, there's no point in aligning them to each other. The whole organization should be aligned around the customer. That's what a customer-centric organization is, right? So all businesses run on processes. Marketing has a bunch of processes. Sales has a bunch of processes. Every part of the organization has processes. And you want to make sure that those processes are facilitating what you need to find, keep, and grow the value of customers, right? So if you understand what that process is from the customer perspective, then you can say, okay, in this part of the journey, this part of the customer process, marketing is going to own that. And when this behavior occurs in the buying journey, it's going to transition to inside sales or outside sales. And when they hit this point in the relationship with us, it's going to include the legal organization, the finance organization, right? And when it gets to this point in the process, it's going to be the customer service people to make sure we keep them, or the implementation people, whatever it might be, the onboarding people. All that whole process, if you have looking at that process and you align your teams to the process, you'll reduce the internal friction because we'll have clarity around who owns what part of the process.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear. and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. Because there's often conflict there, and they're very two different types of people, generally speaking, because there's a lot of commission in sales, whereas marketing, there's not. It's more of kind of a group bonus. But yeah, if you really look at the customer journey like that, that kind of levels the playing field.
Yes, exactly.
You have on Instagram, you have these great Thursday thoughts. I wanted to talk about a couple that I really enjoyed. Every customer interaction is an opportunity to create lasting value.
Yes.
Can't forget that. Even if the customer is upset with us.
That's right. There was a book written by the CEO of Scandinavian Airlines decades ago, and it was called Moments of Truth.
Hmm.
And we have a blog post about Moments of Truth in case someone can't find that book. But it's a great book, and I highly recommend it. There's a lot of great books out there. And some of the classics, like that's not a today book, but it's a book that speaks to many other books that are being written right now. And what he essentially talks about is that every interaction that you have with a customer is a moment of truth. And your employees are the deliverers, right, of those moments of truth. And you have to be clear to your employees what you want those interactions to be like. Even if you have an unhappy customer, what can you do for when that customer is in that situation to solve the problem that they have at that moment? What can you do to give them value in that moment? It may not be something you can 100% fix. I mean, things happen and they're not fixable. The flight has already left if you're in the airplane, right? I missed my flight has gone, or the flight has been canceled, or the flight has been delayed, and I need to be here. What can you do in that moment of truth as the person that's engaging with that individual? And you know they're going to be frustrated. You know they're going to be unhappy. Right. And what are you going to do when you have lots of those happening? How will you engage? Right. And I think it's interesting what some of the people in the airline industry, as an example, are doing today. And I think they're really missing the mark. And the people who can figure that out. I had an opportunity not that long ago to get on an earlier flight, and I had status on this airline. And now they no longer let the gate agents do that in this particular airline. They send you to the customer service queue. Well, the flight that I wanted to get on was going to be boarding within X period of time. And if I went to the customer service line, it was so long, it wrapped around that by the time I would have gotten through the customer service line or gotten through on the phone or into the app, the flight would have already boarded and potentially closed, right, in that window. And so they're missing the opportunity to actually create long-term loyalty because people get frustrated and like, why am I even a loyal member to this airline? Why would I even be worried about this? Because I'm not getting the kind of care I would expect for the amount of loyalty that I'm giving them.
Customer loyalty is earned through consistent excellence and trust.
Yes. Yes.
How can we, when I work with my team, I ask very often, how can we continue to drive and deliver excellence to our customers? Have to keep asking that to ourselves.
I think it's also helpful to ask your customers, where do we excel? What could we do better? What do some of your other providers do that you wish we did? What is it that we do that you wish other providers did? Right? These are all interesting questions. And if you have a customer advisory board, those are great questions to have. So I always encourage companies, and we have a wonderful blog post on customer advisory boards. They can type it in at visionedgemarketing.com and type in customer advisory boards, and it talks about what it really takes. What is a customer advisory board? How do you set one up? And we help companies do that. But it's a great way to engage some of your customers. And when you need, if you're meeting on a regular basis and they feel really valued because their opinion is driving the direction of your company. And you've got, of course, make it valuable for them to participate in the process. It can't be one way. It needs to be a two-way street. But it gives you access to people whose opinions you value, and you can get kind of fast feedback.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask our customers what we're good at and what we're not good at.
Yes.
Some people are afraid of that answer, right? But they shouldn't be.
No, it's a great question. And
Right.
I always like to, ask, what is it you wish other people did that we do? And what is
Hmm.
it you wish we did that other people do? Because that gives you
Hmm.
some insight. Um,
Hmm.
because remember, you're not the only fish in the sea, so to speak, right? Um, they can choose to do it themselves. They can choose an alternative that's directly a competitor to you. They can choose an alternative that's not a direct competitor to you, but will get them the result that they want. Or they may already have a supplier who is saying, well, we could do that too, even if they haven't been offering that before. So you got to keep in mind there's a lot of people on the shoreline fishing in the pond with you.
Hmm. Data is the silent partner in every successful business venture.
Mhm.
I heard stories of you were some of your introductory jobs before Motorola. You were on like a Wang system, and you had to fill out cards and get your answer in a couple days. That's not the issue now. Now we can get data instantaneously. So how do we better use that data to make our customers stay and to get more customers?
Yes, you are exactly right, Joey. We don't have a data problem these days. We are inundated with data, the never ending flow of data. So the real question isn't data. The real question is, to your point, how do we get insights from that data?
Mm.
And when you're a really big company and you can throw people and resources and technology at it, it can be easy, right? Because you might have a whole data science organization or a business analytics team or whatever you might want to call them. You might have a chief data officer or a chief insights officer. Who knows what you've got, right? Um, but when you're a medium sized and smaller company, you probably don't have that resource in house, and you want to leverage external resources and experts well, but you want to make sure that you're using your money wisely. So we just did an article on how to measure the value of your data. I'm going to come back and answer your question in a moment, but I want people to know two really important measures of your data is time to insights and time to decision. So if
Hmm.
the purpose of your data is to help you to get insights faster, can you get insights faster, and can you make decisions faster? Because otherwise you're spinning your wheels. So a lot of people have all this data and it can be quite overwhelming, right? They can be drowning in it. And so what I recommend to midsize and SMB and even the solopreneurs is, what is the question you need the answer to? What is the decision that you need to make? What is it you need to know to make that decision? What is it you think you know, but want to be sure to validate?
Hmm.
Those kinds of questions, if you start with the question, then you can be looking at your data with that in mind. So you can look for the patterns in your data that are helping you with those questions. So it's a little bit more of a scientific approach as opposed to, oh, we'll just jump into the data and see what it says, right? So a question might be, do we have any customers at risk? Are we worried about any of our customers? And you might say, what would be indicators that we have customers at risk? The last X number of customers we lost, what were things that we should have been paying attention to in the data that told us that they were at risk? Using that information, how can we look at our data right now to see if there's anybody else at risk? And then once we see who those people are any of those people we desperately want to hold on to? We would never want to lose them. There may be some customers that are really expensive to serve. Maybe you're willing to let them go, and maybe they are. You gotta be careful though, because sometimes customers that don't seem like they're highly valuable might be really good at referrals, and referrals are
Hmm.
really an important thing to be able to have in your business. So again, you might want to say, which of our customers are most likely to be good referrals for us? That would be an interesting question to look at your data. What makes a good referral?
Hmm.
Another question might be, which of our customers would most likely adopt our next new product or our next new service? Which ones of them are more predisposed to doing that? Right? These are all kinds of questions, right, that would help you look at your data.
Yeah, there's so much data and it's right there. The question is, what do we do with it? I mean, we're always given so much, and is it good to put yourself in the buyer's seat and try to learn that way as well?
Yeah, I think it's always great. In fact, I think it's a wonderful exercise
Hmm.
to have someone be the customer inside the company, sit in the chair, I'm the customer, and the other people being the company, and
Hmm.
engaging in that. And I think, doing any kind of scenario analysis, what if kinds of questions. What if this were to happen to this customer? What if this were to happen with this competitor? What if this were to happen in the market? What ifs help you think about what would your customers do? What will we do? Right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it really comes back to again. I deal with these small businesses, and I said, "All right, I'm going to hire a salesperson." I know that when I first started my business in the '90s, Laura, I hired a salesperson and handed him the yellow pages and said, "Go find me work." I mean, this terrible, right? I didn't understand the difference between marketing, and he needed support that way. And so today we're advanced. We have a lot more ways to get out, but we still have to understand marketing and respect it and like you say, um, aid in the process of selling
Yes.
upstream.
Upstream.
Has there been anything in the last month or so, Laura, that you've changed your mind on?
In the last month or so, I don't know about in the last month or so. Um, I am watching what's happening, like everybody else, at the rapid infiltration of AI into all things,
Mm,
right? And it is an infiltration. And I worry that some people are engaging in the AI, but maybe not in a thoughtful way. So let me give you an
mm,
example. We do a lot of process engineering work as part of our operational excellence. It's a key part of what we do. And as you can imagine, people are looking at always at how can we be more efficient? How can we streamline this process? So one of the first things you want to do is map the current process, understand what it entails, and identify where there might be opportunities to create a future process, a process in the future that would be more streamlined, right?
hmm,
And having come from Motorola, the father of Six Sigma, process mapping is like something you learn to do in your sleep. So we do a lot of that work. And what I'm noticing is that a lot of people are going to the AI and they're asking it to streamline the process. And then they're thinking about how to automate the process with some AI capability, right? The AI is actually going to do this part of the process. My question to them is, well, when you put the re-engineer process out there, did you actually try it to see what it did? Did you actually use it?
mm,
Because you need to use it to see if it was and produces the result you want. And did you see if there's any gotchas in that process? Like, oh, holy moly, this thing that we took out actually maybe something because it, takes X amount of time, but now we can see that there was some value in that. We might need to think about how we put that back in. So if you automate a process before you've actually used it and vetted it, you could end up creating real bad ripples, particularly if
hmm.
they're customer facing processes. And almost everything eventually hits the customer, whether that's how you invoice them or how you onboard them or how you deliver something to them, whatever it might be. Ultimately, something will, even if it's in the back office, ripple out. So that's an example of where people might be getting a little ahead of themselves.
Hmm. And we can use AI just in our conversation before about data. We can get all the data that we have, maybe use AI to help massage it a bit and make it more palatable for our customers for them to enjoy and understand better.
We can. The thing we have to be, again, careful of is that the the AI, depending on what you're using, has been trained. And if you're not
Mm.
careful, the way you engage with that AI can create a confirmation bias,
Hmm.
right? So you want to be very careful, especially when you're using customer data. And also, if you're going to use customer data, you definitely don't want that in the public domain. You want to
Mm.
work with something that's in your firewall. You don't want your customer data to be leaking out into the
Interesting.
public domain, or something that becomes part of the of someone else's training model. But
Mm.
training your whatever AI platform you're going to use is going to take data. You have to train
Mm.
it, and want to be sure you're doing that correctly so that you don't create a bias. So then when you start asking questions, you're going to get the answer you want, not necessarily the answer that you need.
Hmm. So, Laura, I started my business in the 90s and I was working way too hard at a tech firm, just supporting small businesses networks and doing some programming. Later, that got, moved to an MSP and application development. But back then, the World Wide Web was very different, as you know. And I was working 14, 16-hour days, stranger to this and putting my health in the back seat. Next thing I know, I'm at the doctor's office and she says to me, I'm 340 pounds. And if I don't lose this weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So scared the life out of me, driving home, really upset. And this is my pie hole. I'm the one who did this. So I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 120 pounds, kept it off. And people ask, you can't look at it as a finishing line when you're losing weight. These are lifelong changes, right? You don't want to gain it back. And when I tell this story, people always say, "What's your secret?" And there's no secret. Discipline. I got willpower, focus, motivation, etc. How does discipline play a role in your life, Laura Patterson?
Yes, great question. And I'm a very disciplined,
Mm,
structured person. I bet that's already come across. You can't do
yes.
triathlons and not be a disciplined person, because you've got to train if you're going to be competitive. And I'm a competitive person, so I live a pretty disciplined life, and I like structure, and I think it's important for people to have that discipline. And to your point, most of the time we are responsible. It's our own responsibility that gets, right, our lack of discipline and lack of personal responsibility that gets us in trouble. So we just need to be able to be personally accountable, personally responsible. It's nice to have buddies that can help you, right? But and so this takes me back to an example that I often use. You needed to get healthy so that you would be able to see your daughter graduate.
Mm,
Your doctor told you you needed to lose weight. She didn't tell you how to do it. She
right.
just told you what you needed to do. She left it to you to decide the best course of action that would work for you. You could have chosen, I'm going to change my diet. You could have chosen, I'm going to change how much I eat. You could have chosen, I'm going to increase my calories out by increasing my exercise, or some combination of those things. So I think that as business leaders and business owners, when we think about what it is we're trying to accomplish, we need to figure out how we're going to do that and put a plan in place that we can stick to. That
Hmm.
is the discipline. And being able to say to somebody, I'm sorry, I can't do X because that's the time that I do Y. And I do Y because I plan to see my daughter graduate, right?
Mm,
I'm usually on the track at about between 4 and 4:15 in the morning,
wow.
5 days a week. That is discipline, right?
Yeah.
But if I don't go at that time, I'm not going to be able to find another window in my day to go. And here in Texas, you can't go too late in the summer because
Right.
you'll fry out there.
Yes.
I have to go early enough because I go to the track at the high school and I need to be off the track before the kids arrive, right?
Mm,
And I'm in their way for their morning during the school year. So it takes discipline. You have to decide that this is an important enough thing for my life, for my well-being, for my family, whatever, for my business, for my customers, for my community, whatever those things are, and put them. And I'm a strong believer in blocking out your calendar for those things, whatever they are. Commit to the time, because nothing in your life that you need to achieve is going to be without some commitment of time, right? Commit to the time that it's going to take for you to do it. And um, I want to call, I have a friend and a colleague, and she uses the phrase attention management as
Hmm.
opposed to time management, and that we give our attention to the things that matter to us. Identify what those things are and block them out on your calendar.
Your approach, Laura, just generally most things in your life, I get the feeling it's more science than art.
Yes, I'm a left brainer.
Yeah.
And thank goodness I'm married to a left brainer. That really helps.
That does help. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What motivates you? Laura?
I am definitely motivated when I can help my customers be more successful. That means a lot
Hmm.
to me. I'm motivated when my family is happy and in a good place, right? These are things that make me feel good. I'm I want my friends to be in a good place, right? So it's really about how can I get to have a positive impact? How can I help them be successful and have a positive impact? And that is really a core value. My father, who passed away in 2006, and I miss him every day, really believed that two things. One, we're all here for a short period of time. While we're here, not only do the right thing, but do right things for others, right?
Hmm.
That was an important part of him. And the second thing was the only thing that will matter at the end will be the people's lives that you touched along the way. All the rest will be pretty insignificant because you're not going to be Da Vinci. You're not going to be Galileo. You're not going to be Albert Einstein. That'd be great. You can aspire to that. That'd be awesome. I'd like to think that I've create some kind of legacy in the space and the discipline I'm in, but I'm not those people. So the only thing that's going to matter in the end are the people's lives I've touched, the customers, the friends, the family, the community, people like you. That's what in the end will make all the difference.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz Podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Impact. So, given that motivation of impacting your family, professionally, etc., how do you measure success?
Well, when customers say thank you, that really made a difference, or my family says, or friends say, I really appreciate it, that helped me do X or Y, whatever that might be, or they just are generally in a better place, right? That's how you measure it.
Appreciation.
Yeah, gratitude, thank you. I feel grateful every day. And I try to say thank you to the people who along the way. I mean, I am so blessed. I've had such wonderful, not just customers, but partners and people like you, people in our ecosystem, advisors, uh, people in other professions, people in my network, all those people that have helped me get where I am today. It's not a solo act. Even if one of the people in your community is a solopreneur, they are on their own. They're really not on their own.
Hmm.
No one's on their own. What was that song, Joey? No man is an island, or
Yes, no
something like
man is
that.
that. Yeah.
Right. We're really
It,
not on our own.
yeah. We feel like it. We are sometimes. Excuse me. So, in your firm, Vision Edge Marketing, who won't you work with?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
In your firm,
Yes.
Vision Edge Marketing, who will you not work with?
Who will I not work with? You mean in terms of customers?
Yes.
That is such a good question. Our customers, when I think about what they have in common, is that they are courageous. They
Mm.
know they need to do something different. They know that what they've been doing is not getting them where they want to go, and they are courageous. Um, People who are extremely risk adverse, right? They're not willing to take a risk on to do something, embrace a different process and different plan, a different way, um, pick different measures. They're probably not going to be happy working with us. We're
Hmm.
very collaborative in what we do, but we want people who want to move forward, who see the possibility, right? Who want to replace random acts with something that is deliberate, intentional, customer centric, who want to elevate what they're doing in a way that they can create more value for customers and for their business. We're looking for those kinds of people.
Hmm. Well, I love what you're doing, and as I grow, I find how marketing is so freaking cool, and I never had an appreciation in the beginning of my, business journey, but I just see how helpful it is and how essential it is and how creative it can be. I love what you're doing, Laura. I thank you so much for your time today.
Oh,
Anybody
thank you.
listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
They can come to visionedgemarketing.com. They can email me at laurap@visionedgemarketing.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with them on LinkedIn. Um, we want everybody that is in your community to hopefully walk away with at least one good idea from our conversation, and I hope that they will.
VisionEdgeMarketing.com. Laura Patterson at LinkedIn. Of course, you're on Instagram with those Thursday mentions that I mentioned, and you're
I
on
didn't even
X
know
and you're on
people looked at
YouTube.
them, Joey.
I do.
Okay? I'm going to tell
I
my
do.
team that people actually are looking at those
I
Thursday
do.
thoughts.
I do. And I love it. I thank you so much. Next time I'm in the general Austin area, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
My pleasure. I will take you to any place you want to go. Dinner, lunch, it's on me.
My favorite is Black's, the
Oh,
barbecue there in Austin. Yeah, that's
yes.
my favorite. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
You be well. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.